If you showed me the Starbucks logo and I had never been inside of a Starbucks, didn't know what Starbucks was, you showed me this thing and you say, do you think this is the most beautiful piece of design you've ever seen? I would say no, it's a mermaid in a green circle. Hey friends, I'm Vic Harrison and welcome to this episode of The Branded Startup. In this video, we're going to talk all things logo design. If you've just started a company, you're likely going to have to decide what's going to be your brand's logo. Now, maybe you're using a designer that's helping you, or maybe you're doing this yourself, which I think is totally cool. Either way, there's going to be a few decisions to make. I've put together 6 tips for you in this video that are going to help you create an iconic logo that grows with your brand over time. A logo that is flexible enough to work in a variety of different situations and looks good no matter where you put it, and one that sends really the right message about what your brand stands for at the core to all of your customers. Before we get into it though, I want to touch on one quick thing. I see far too many people overwhelmed at this idea of designing a logo simply because they think that a logo has to be some gorgeous piece of design. It's got to wow everybody the minute they see it. I want you to think about your logo instead as a tool. I want you to think about your logo as the foundational tool that you're then going to build your brand around. So if that's how we're thinking about it, what are all great tools have in common? All great tools are easy to use, they last a long time, they work in many different scenarios and help you do your job better. That's what we want from our logo. We don't want it to get in the way of our work of building our brand. We want it to help us do that. Let's use the Starbucks logo as an example. If I'm walking through the mall and I see a Starbucks logo, for me, I immediately think of great coffee. I think of warm sweaters or pumpkin spice lattes. I think of productive work sessions and a warm environment. That's what I think of. You might think of something different, but the point is that Starbucks logo to me signals all of these past experiences I've had with Starbucks. So it's a tool that serves as a shortcut for my brain to say, oh, that's what that's all about. If you showed me the Starbucks logo and I had never been inside of a Starbucks, didn't know what Starbucks was, you showed me this thing and you say, do you think this is the most beautiful piece of design you've ever seen? I would say no, it's a mermaid in a green circle. Of course, it's not the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, but it is a great tool because I've learned to associate that green mermaid with all the things I just mentioned. Okay, now that we've established your logo as a tool, not beautiful design, let's go into the 6 tips I have for you about how to make that tool the best possible tool for your brand to be built upon. Tip number 1. Please do the work of defining who your brand is at the very core. What is your brand's personality? What's your brand's essence? What do you stand for? Why do you exist and how are you different? So if you do that work before you jump into the logo design and choosing colors and fonts, which I get it, it's really tempting. Those things are fun. When you start a company, you immediately want to start designing your website, creating content, but I beg you, do that hard work of defining really who you are at the core before you design your logo, because then your logo is going to be infused with a lot more meaning. Here's an example of the Amazon logo. It looks like a smile, right, with an arrow that's pointing upward, but really that arrow is strategically going from the letter A to the letter Z because Amazon wants to let you know that they sell everything from A to Z. But it couldn't have made its way in there if Amazon didn't know that that was their mission, their core reason for why they exist. Another example is the FedEx logo. If you look closely, in the negative space between the E and the X, there's an arrow there and it's placed there intentionally. FedEx stands for efficiency and speed. Now I think this is a great, genius way to infuse meaning into a logo based on the principles for what the company values most importantly. For FedEx, it's efficiency and speed. For Amazon, it is it is letting you know that you can find anything from A to Z on Amazon's website. So do the work of defining your brand's mission and vision, who you want to be at the core of your brand, because then you'll be able to infuse that into your logo. The next tip is you want to keep your logo design really simple, but you do want to add a little bit of a unique touch. So it's kind of walking that fine line between, you want it to be simple but not so simple that it just looks like you typed it out in Microsoft Word, you know what I mean? But you also want it to not be overdone, because I think there's a temptation, right? When you're designing your logo, you think the more detail I add to it, the more special it's going to be, when really often quite the opposite is true. The more simple you make your logo, the more you strip it down to its barest essentials, the more confidence you're going to project. Here are a couple of examples I personally love of really simple logos that have a little bit of a unique touch. Number one is the Stripe logo. It's all lowercase, really easy and simple to look at, but then if you look a little closer, there's this little detail of a slant on the I and the P, and that creates this nice stripe shape across the logo. That's a nice play on words, I think. Another good example is the logo for the makeup company Glossier. It's so simple and easy to look at, but there's one little unique touch, which is the period. I don't know very many logos that have a period in it, so for that reason, Glossier's logo remains unique and distinct. Tip number 3, it's not really a tip, but something for you to think about, is if you have a really unique name for your company, if the name of your company is distinct or really clever in some way, you might want to think about making an incredibly simple logo, because the name is just so unique that you want the name to stand out more than anything else. A good example of this is the company Away. They make suitcases and luggage. Their logo is so simple because the name Away is just brilliant. It says exactly what the company does. It rolls off the tongue. It sounds great. So they've opted for the most simple of executions. It's just the letters A-W-A-Y in a box. All right, tip number 4. Please do not make your logo too literal. This is like the pet peeve, I think, of all designers. Don't ask your designer to make your logo a pair of socks if you're starting a sock company. What that's going to say to all of us is that you couldn't be bothered thinking of anything more interesting. It immediately sends the message that you're not innovative, you're not creative in the least bit to come up with anything more interesting for your logo than a pair of socks. Now, if you're not interested in building a brand, if you're starting a sock company to make money and sell as many socks as possible, then maybe that's okay. Go ahead and put a pair of socks in your logo. But see, branding is often associated with creativity. I think they go together like a pair of socks. But really, yeah, brand and creativity, they are two sides of the same coin. So if you're starting a brand with a really ultra literal logo, it's just not gonna be good. If you still need more convincing, here are a couple of really literal logos, and it did not go well for these companies because they get made fun of all over the internet. It's just not gonna be good. All right, tip number 5 is I want you to consider, how is your logo gonna look in a variety of different applications? What is it gonna look like from really far away? Am I still gonna be able to read it or recognize it visually? What is it gonna look like in a sea of other logos? Imagine you're on a postcard at a conference or in the mall, right, on a huge poster of logos. What is your logo gonna look like when it's surrounded by everybody else? Is it gonna still be visually concise? Like, are you still gonna be able to immediately spot it and say, oh yeah, that's the brand, I know that brand? If not, if your logo does have too much detail or too many words, which we often see sometimes in the case of a university or a nonprofit, right? They've got these long names and they put them all in their logo. I would really consider creatively solving that problem, because what you want is your logo to jump out at you and for it to be instantly recognizable. And finally, tip number 6 is always include your company name in your logo. They should be married together at all times, no matter what. I say this because some new businesses get confused when they see the Nike swoosh or the Apple logo or Target's logo, because they see just the icon. And the reason Nike's been able to use the Nike swoosh and drop the word Nike at times is because it's taken them 30 years of building their brand before they were able to do that. You're likely not there and not going to be there for a really long time. So you want your brand to always be recognizable instantly, and you want your name to be part of your logo at all times. As you're going through this process, just continue to remind yourself that your logo is meant to be a tool that should work with your brand, not against you. It should help you. It should make things easier for you. And do not forget that really your logo isn't your brand. What you do after your logo, the customer service experience that you create, the products your company creates, that stuff is actually how you build your brand. Your logo is just meant to remind your customers of your company as they go about their daily lives. I hope this video was helpful. If you have questions or thoughts for me, or if you think I missed something, please leave me a comment down below. I would love to hear your thoughts. And I will see you soon.